Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.
Hello and welcome back to another One United podcast. I'm joined by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad. You?
Ooh, I can't hear you. Can you hear him, guys?
I can hear Henry. I can hear him.
Fine then.
I can hear him fine. I'll be the translator. I'll be like Jose Mourinho at Barca.
Can you hear me now?
It's sorted. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, like a bit of a weird introduction, but we're joined again by Gaz from BBC Radio Manchester. How you doing, Gaz?
I'm doing all right, mate. How can I be anything but all right after watching United the other night?
Exactly, especially after other results going our way as well. But we'll come to that game first then, Henry. Obviously, it's not every day you score 9. It's not every day United score more than 1 at home. So to get 9 was a very special treat. How did you feel about the game, sort of overall?
To be honest, I was a little bit sceptical going into it, and I think rightfully so, because obviously the Sheffield United result, we need a response from the Arsenal game as well, and we needed a win. Obviously, the early red card straight away. As soon as that happened, I thought, right, okay, we can really go for these lot now, because it can either go one of two ways against 10 men. You can sit back and play possession and try and break them down and not quite get it right and get the goal, and then they get back into the game. So, but that didn't happen. We were fantastic, and rubbing salt in the wounds by Wan-Bissaka and Dan James scoring. So, it's all in all a really good night, and I can't complain one bit. So,
yeah, definitely a great night to be at Old Trafford. Guys, do you think it would have been even better with fans?
Oh yeah, I was. That was the one thing I was gutted about, to be honest, that we weren't there. That would have been an ace game to be at. I mean, it would have been the biggest scoreline I'd ever seen at Old Trafford. The only other two were the Arsenal games and the Roma games. But it was absolutely phenomenal watching it at home, mate. I couldn't believe it. I think, as Henry just said then, when they did get the man sent off, I was a little bit like, all right, we're either going to absolutely smash these now, or we're going to make it difficult and maybe squeeze out a 1-0. But then as soon as I saw Wan-Bissaka score a volley, I was like, right, this is it now. If Wan-Bissaka's scoring volleys, this could be 7 or 8, and it was even more. So, it was quite nice. But I do want to ask you two as Reds, when it was maybe 6-0 and they got the second red, did that not take a little bit of enjoyment out of the game for you? I don't want to be too negative, but it was just crap after that, because it wasn't a red card either. It was a bit embarrassing.
Well, I felt bad. I felt bad for Southampton. I really did. And I said after the game, if there's one team, probably one or two teams in the league that, I don't want to put 9 past it, it's them, because they're a good club. They do things the right way. They've got a really nice manager who's, I'd argue, top 4 or 5 in the league in terms of, tactical knowledge and quality. Showed it in Germany as well. So, I felt bad. I really did. And then, it's when it was 6, I was thinking, right, okay, that's fine. 6 will be absolutely fine. And then we just go and start scoring a couple more. That red just wasn't a red. But
bonkers,
if they give if they give the Wolves one, they've got to give this one. It's simple as that. It's they're setting a precedent which is not good for them in terms of decision making in the game. So they had to give it regardless. But I did feel bad at the end of the game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I completely agree with. Oh, go on. Sorry, guys.
I was just going to say, like, when you're talking about the penalty in the Arsenal game, and if that was a penalty, this should have been a penalty. I totally agree. But do you not hate the way that, like, football's becoming so, like, rigid? Like, it's like this is the rule and this is always the rule, when I've always thought that football can be quite flexible at times. Like, I feel like the referee in that situation, when it's 6-0 and it could have been a penalty, like, and I understand he has to follow the letter of the law exactly. But like, even Martial was saying, don't give a penalty. I reckon even the United players were thinking, we don't need a penalty here. Like, and I just feel like the referee in that situation, instead of spending 5 minutes or whatever it was checking a screen, and I don't know, I feel like it just takes so much enjoyment out of the game. And he could have just said, oh, it's all right, just play on. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's one thing VAR doesn't offer, is context. You know, there's a lot of decisions that VAR gives that probably wouldn't have been given when you actually provide context to them, like the penalty, maybe even the red card with David Luiz. I think, like you say, VAR sets these rules rigidly, and you have to stick with them no matter what. And I think, if VAR wasn't involved, I don't think David Luiz gets sent off, unless the ref deems him to have made more contact than he did, because it was hard to tell from that angle. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about United, I thought when you lose 2 men, you sort of, in a sense, you sort of lose that integrity of the win, especially with the way they went down to 9 men. But you can't complain about scoring 9 goals, can you?
Not really.
But I'll come back to you, Henry. Gaz sort of touched on it earlier. When they went down to 10 men after a minute or so, were you sort of along the same lines as me, as this could be a very long day? We could actually get beat 1-0 here, because that's just what United are like, aren't they?
Yeah, it was. I was looking at obviously the sending off. I said after it happened, providing McTominay was okay, I did say I felt bad for the guy, because as playing when I was younger, I knew that if you're going into a game when you're making your debut, whether it's non-league or whether it's professional football, the manager would have said to him, make an impression, make yourself known to the fans, and he's got over-eager and gone in for a stupid challenge he shouldn't have gone in for, and that could maybe even cost him his career at Southampton. So, and I hope it doesn't, because he seems like beforehand he played a couple of games from the bench and whatever, and he seemed like a reasonable player. But yeah, I felt bad for him. But in terms of, was I fearful? Absolutely, because we're United. We can turn up and do what we did, win 9-0, or we could turn up and draw 1-1 and not be able to break the team down. So that early goal was critical. I just want to make one more quick point, actually, on the VAR thing. I don't know whether you guys would agree. I think it might be a good idea to have some footballing people in the VAR booth, in terms of ex-professionals, or whether they're playing League Two, whether they played League Two or League One, or National League or whatever. Footballing people make footballing decisions. These guys have never played before. The referees have never played before. They'll never make decisions based on. So these guys will be able to tell, ex-pros will be able to tell what's going through a player's mind when they're making that challenge. What's going through David Luiz's mind? He's trying to get out of the way. He didn't mean to make the contact, and they'll say that. Plain and simple, yellow card. If he made contact, it is a penalty, but yellow card, no red card, didn't mean to do it. So this argument that the referees, should just be changing the rules or whatever, I don't agree. I think we should have different people in the VAR booth to make the decisions, because footballing people will make footballing decisions because they'll know what it's like. These guys haven't experienced it before, It just doesn't make any sense that we're relying on referees to back other referees up. It should be
that's interesting.
People to be trusted to say, right, go to the monitor here, or don't, or personally I think this, but you can make your own judgment on it. It will just give, you mentioned context in a situation. That's what it will do. These guys will be able to give context because they know they've been in the situation before. Referees haven't, and I think it's a critical error. So you can't just go bending or changing the rules every year. Change the people that are in the booth, because they'll make different decisions, the correct ones.
We just need more. Sorry, James, you go on.
I was just going to say it's a very fine line between giving these ex-players and ex-professionals the roles so that they can provide context and sort of know-how, but then you've also got to have that fine line between someone who will do that, but someone who will also know the rules in and out, like a referee does. I think that's your problem. You run that risk of having someone making the wrong call because they don't know the exact law of the game. Do you know what I mean?
But if the refs can learn the law, why can't ex-professionals?
It takes them like 20 years, though, doesn't it, to get up to the level to ref a Premier League game. I think it's not just a quick fix. I think it's a very long process to learn the game in and out from a officiating standpoint.
I feel like what Henry was saying then, it's not necessarily, get rid of refs and replace them with former professionals, but have a former professional in the VAR booth to at least advise them. Yeah,
context. Those decisions that were made in the last couple of days were horrendous. And they were made based on, it was the letter of the law. That's forget that for a second. Forget the letter of the law, because the law is rubbish in football. That idea that Paul Merson, please.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Actually, I like that comment. It's a good point.
No, it's the rules are rubbish at the moment, and they do need amending. But they need someone there to tell them, hang on a sec, been in that situation. He can't do anything. He can't do anything else there other than try and get out of the way. If he clips him, he clips him. It's not a red card. So
it would be different if like referees were, as you said, Henry, like former professionals or failed professionals, if you want to put it that way. But they're not, and it's almost like, this is going to be a really weird comparison, but it's almost like it's similar to politicians, where if you grow up and you want to be a politician, you shouldn't be allowed to be a politician, because wanting to be one should discount you from being one. It's almost the same as a referee. Who grows up and wants to be a referee when they're older? Weirdos, that's who. And that's why a lot of these refs are generally like Mike Dean was making it all about himself, I felt, with that second penalty decision. And he knew full well that he could have just not give the penalty, carried on, and there would have not been a big deal made about it. We saw in the Sheffield United game that 2 decisions the referee actually got wrong, just got on with the game like nothing had happened. I know they've gone back and said the decisions were wrong to Ole since, but it happened, and it would have been forgotten about at the time. So Mike Dean knew that he could have let that go, and he could have just let the game flow. But he dead simply wanted to make himself a celebrity, and I think a lot of these referees do that. And I like I say, I think it's just because a few of them are a little bit weird. Because who actually wants to be a referee when they're older? That's it, weirdos.
I think I completely agree with you there, but I think that's the problem you get in VAR. I think if VAR wasn't there, Mike Dean probably would have let that go, I think. But because VAR is there, you have to review it. And because it was a penalty, wasn't it? You sort of have to give it because it's been reviewed, etc., etc. You have to stick to these rules for some sort of continuity throughout the season. So I think that just goes back to my point about VAR provides no context at all. It's very black and white, isn't it?
But I think regardless of that, I think people that are saying get rid of it, whatever, that's utter nonsense in my opinion, because it does more good than bad. But the problem we've got is the bad decisions are so bad that they get projected to 100 times, and it's like, oh my god, this is the worst decision I think we've ever seen. But then we had the incident with the Man City game against West Brom. I know they won the game 5-0 or whatever, but when the linesman put a flag up, she was kind of a bit hesitant at first. You could see, she was going, do I do it or not? And she did. And it turns out Bernardo Silva wasn't offside. So, that would have been ruled out and wouldn't have been a goal. So we're getting the right decisions with offsides. I know someone's arse can be offside or whatever. They need to make that clearer because it's just getting ridiculous now. Someone's toenail, if they haven't trimmed their toenail, it'll be offside. So it's simple as that. It's a terrible rule, but we are getting a lot of the right decisions in terms of VAR. It's just the bad ones are so bad that people are saying get rid of it. It just needs to be more clearer.
I just don't know, and I understand what you mean, Henry, about we can't just get rid of it now and stuff like that. And I understand why it's there, because there's so much money in the game and there is so much at stake, like people's livelihoods at stake in these games, millions of people, thousands of people, should I say. But like for me, it's just become too much of a spreadsheet sport now. And I prefer it being a human sport. I really do. The linesmen, the lines people and the referees are humans. They can make mistakes. Like I feel like let's just let them make mistakes. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being relatively old-fashioned, and in a couple of years' time, I'll come around to the idea. Because at first, I didn't like goal line technology. I didn't like the concept behind that for exactly the same reasons. I prefer the sport to be human, but that works absolutely perfectly, I guess. And I don't really have a problem with that now. But VAR at the minute, it's just turned it into like a robot, almost Americanized sport, if that makes sense.
The reason why I mention not getting rid of it is because I've seen it firsthand in other leagues. So in Germany, it works fantastically. They rarely get a wrong decision in Germany, and in Italy as well. Been watching those kind of games for this season. Even in the lesser known leagues. So You get the Belgian league as well, and things like that, and they're just the decisions are just made correctly. You can see it. So, Milan derby last week, I think it was. Obviously, Zlatan gets sent off. There's a penalty appeal after about 5 minutes after. It gets waved away by the ref, and VAR goes, "Hang on a minute, might want to go to the monitor for that one," which we seemingly never do. The monitor isn't just there for show; it's there to help the refs, and they're not using it. But he goes to monitor, decides there's contact, takes him like a minute or so, gets the correct decision though, and Inter come from behind to win that game. So I think if it's used correctly, which is not being in this country, we're so stubborn. It's like, we're better than everyone else. Don't have to go to monitor. We're better than everyone else. We're smarter than everyone else. You know, well, we're not like those Europeans. You know, we don't go to monitor because we're too good for that. Suck it up, go to monitor, make the correct decision for once, because every other league's doing it. We're the only league that are making mistakes. And I can promise you, if we do what they're doing, I think you'll change your opinion, because it will be so much clearer. It will.
Our refs don't care what them European refs are doing. Leave means leave. Brexit means Brexit.
But genuinely, I think
it's what you mean.
It's the stubbornness of being who we are, and it's just like, please just use the fucking monitor. It's there.
But
it's in the face.
Do you think a solution then would be remove the bloke who's watching the game 200 miles away, and simply, if a ref feels like there's a contentious decision, he alone goes to the monitor, reviews it, and then gives that decision? Because you then keep in that element of human refereeing. There's no, like, I don't really see the point in having a bloke in Stockport watching a game in London and telling the ref what to do. Do you know what I mean? If the ref makes a decision, he's not entirely sure on it, he goes to the monitor and then gives a decision based on that.
That's the point. In other leagues, they don't do that. They're not in their ear saying, you should make this decision. They're not. They're saying, this looks contentious. I'm not going to make the decision because the ref on the field should make the decision. Can you please go to the VAR monitor and figure out whether you agree with this is a penalty or not a penalty? And if you decide it's your decision, it's your decision. So it's on the referee, not on some dickhead 200 miles away in Stockley Park deciding the game for everyone else. It's on the referee in the game. So I think that's the correct way to do it, James.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. That would be a great way to do it. And you could even go further than that, and you could say the person in the referee's ear, it doesn't necessarily need to be that person who's telling the referee that there's a contentious decision there. If the referee disagrees with the linesman, if there's ever a disagreement in the refereeing team, that's when he goes, right, let's check it. Let's get another opinion. Let's check the screen. Sorry, not get another opinion in his ear. So yeah, I totally agree. There are ways of making it work, and I'll be honest, Henry, I've not seen much of the European leagues this season to see how they've actually implemented it. But I would be interested in that, especially what you said about the Milan derby.
Yeah, what James said is exactly what they do in other leagues. There was Atletico playing Cadiz away. I think they're drawing the game. You know, they go on to win it in the end. But there's a handball decision where Koke puts his arm down, and someone passes the ball and it just hits his arm. He's just trying to keep balance on the floor because he's falling over. And they say to the ref, they give a penalty at first, and they say to the ref, can you go over to the monitor to make a decision? And he waves it away and says, there is no way in hell he meant to put his arm down and bat the ball away. He just had his arm on the floor. So it needs to be the referees making the decisions. Then it's on them. It's not on anyone else. It's not on some guy making decisions for them. But we need to go from what the European leagues are doing and be a bit smarter. Just decide. If it takes a minute, I don't care. But, you know, the most important thing is getting to the correct decision. And we'll get it quicker and it will get better, you know, over the years and stuff. But I think that once we start to get it right, we'll get it really right and people will start to see that. And it'll be a massive improvement on the league.
But do you think, with what Jamie's saying here, I think this is a good comment. Do you think we should adopt like a rugby style thing where we can hear everything that's going on with the referees and the people in the VAR officers?
I mean, if they want to start showing football on TV at 12 midnight, maybe, but otherwise I can't see how that one would work, because you imagine the language that you'd hear watching it. And obviously I'd absolutely love that. Like I'd for pure entertainment value, that would be so fascinating. But I'm not sure how they'd be able to implement that.
Yeah, you would just see, you know, F this, knobhead that. It would just constantly be swearing. the good thing about rugby is, and I know people dislike it and whatever, but they treat the referees like a teacher. If they say bad language to them, so it was probably 10 years ago, Dylan Hartley got sent off for calling the ref a cheat. He called him an effing cheat, and the ref said, "Right, off you go." And he's like, "What? Off you go?"
Do you not think that would happen in football though?
I think it should, but I don't think it will.
All right. I feel like I do feel like if a player told a ref to F off, I think like they probably wouldn't get sent off. But I feel like if a football player turned to a ref and said you're a cheat, I think that they'd probably go as well. But
I'm not even sure they would. I know they talk about dissent getting booked. They probably get booked. They won't get sent off. They probably just get a booking, and then they go, if you say that again, you're off. But it's rugby have drawn a line under language. Bad language, you're off. Simple as that. Say any bad language to the referee, even if you're shouting and appealing for penalties and stuff, they'll say, "Hold on a sec, you do that again, sin bin." So I think that's the right thing that we should be looking at. Just calm things down a little bit. They're paid 150 grand. They don't need to be shouting and swearing at the ref as well, because it just creates a bad behaviour cut. That's brilliant. Seeing that, yeah. Maybe we should learn off it. I don't know, but people will agree and disagree. So I think we should leave that one dead in the water for a while until it comes back alive in a couple of years' time.
couple of weeks.
The bad language argument's a difficult one, isn't it? Because players at this level, like Gaz said earlier, their livelihoods are depending on some of these games. It's hard not to get passionate and aggressive when something doesn't go your way, because this is your season on the line here. This is your salary. This is keeping your families in the home they're in, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think it'd be harsh to start penalising players for swearing, but I think the dissent rule does need to be re-looked at, because refs are getting disrespected by players, and I don't think that can slide. I think rugby does it well, but
I think the best word to use is undermined. Refs, they get undermined by players week in, week out, and playing at amateur level, I've been guilty of it. I've said some contentious things to referees, whether they made a wrong decision or given a corner when it shouldn't be a corner. So it's almost ingrained into football. It was never ingrained into rugby. It was never like that to treat the ref. It was a gentleman's sport, rugby. I believe that's
I get that argument, but do you not also think that, and I know it's different with league and union here, so I don't want anyone to get too offended here, but rugby's fundamentally not a working class sport as much as football is. And I feel like football, because it has come from those working class roots, a lot of people who are football fans and have been indoctrinated into their team, it's a lot of the time for these people, the only thing they have at the weekend to let all the frustrations out and to let all the stresses out from the week. And I think that's why maybe football fans are a little bit more aggressively passionate, let's say, and more tribal than rugby fans, because maybe some rugby fans won't like me saying this, but it means more to a lot of these football fans. That's just my humble opinion when you see them. And I think that that's naturally going to filter onto the pitch a little bit, because these players know how passionate the fans are, and from that, the players that we all love, let's face it, are players who are just as passionate for their team as the fans are. So naturally they're gonna be swearing at the referees and stuff, and we are going to see it a little bit more than rugby. But I don't know, I think it's a class thing maybe.
What was Jamie playing for? The jail team or something? What the hell was that?
I missed that comment. What was it? One of your teammate chased the ref and locked him in his change. Oh, brilliant! I would have loved to have done that.
That's peak. That's funny. That is. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think that argument, the gentleman's sport, whatever, we're more working class. I think that's fair, but rugby's probably come down a couple of pegs in terms of people are now watching it more often. Twickenham's always full when they're playing international games and stuff, and I watch rugby, but yeah, rugby fans are too mild for me, so I kind of steer clear of that audience. But yeah, the language thing will have to be revisited at some stage, I'm sure. But I don't think until VAR and everything else is sorted out that will happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll divert back to the game quickly. Then, obviously, there's not much you can really say about it. It was a complete freak of a game, but I'll go through people's man of the matches, because I found this quite hard to pick. It's going to be tough when even Dan James got himself a goal. So I'll come to you first, Henry. Of the 11 there's probably 14 players that we had on the pitch, given the subs. Who did you think was man of the match?
God, that's tough. That's actually really tough. I'm going to go McTominay, and I've got a reason for this. And I've been really frustrated with him when he's playing the big games. Really frustrated because he plays that sitting deep, holding role. No real progression. It's always sideways or backwards or whatever. Why can't we just play him in a box-to-box role? When we're playing those big games, he is more disciplined than Pogba. We know that. But why can't he just play that box-to-box role? Because he was breaking that defence every time he played a pass. With him, it's always, it's like Chris Smalling used to be. When Louis van Gaal told him to pass a bit harder and get to the target quicker, he used to just fire it as hard as he could at a player. McTominay's a little bit more controlled than that, but they're always direct passes in between the lines whenever he's playing a lesser team. So why can't we do that in the bigger games? Why can't, when he's being progressive, Fred can sit back. That's fine. That's his job. He can sit back. McTominay needs to be more direct in those bigger games. And I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that game. Controlled a lot of the tempo. He does all the flashy stuff as well at times, which is good to see. In the end, to be fair, we were taking the piss out of them, which I did feel a bit bad. But, he was fantastic. And I can't look past him. I thought Fernandes was okay, but didn't really break the lines that many times. So, yeah, I'll give him McTominay.
Yeah, I think that like you say about Fernandes, McTominay was brilliant. It's a weird game, but he still thrived. But I think Fernandes again is a victim of his own standards because he put in a solid 8 out of 10 performance, and we're still going. I'll agree with you. I didn't think he played well, and he still got a goal and 2 assists. I think he went missing for large periods of the game, and that's just says it all about him, doesn't it? But I'll come to you, Gaz. Who did you think?
It's interesting that we're saying that about Bruno, isn't it? We've won 9-0. And he's not necessarily had a good game. Like that's a great thing for United because it was only a few weeks ago that we were saying we're over-reliant on him. I think the man of the match, or it's men of the match almost, it's that left-hand side, Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford. I thought we saw what they can do. We know what Luke Shaw can do this season. We've seen him. He's looked absolutely phenomenal. I've not seen many comebacks from a player like Luke Shaw. The only similar one is John Stones at Man City. And I think that those two are both going for player of the season this year, and it's genuinely amazing to see. And I don't know whether it's a mental thing and whether Ollie has really had an effect on him in that sense, and it is purely just bringing Tellez in, but I feel like that's taken a little bit away from Luke Shaw because he has obviously grafted hard and he has obviously made some very tough decisions about his mentality towards the game and maybe his lifestyle as well. Maybe there's been a few lifestyle changes. And he deserves so much credit because he was phenomenal in that game. And it's not just his crosses or the bombing forward, the stuff that you expect a really good left back to do. When he gets the ball, he's one of the most intelligent players on the ball where he knows the way that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants United to play. And he knows exactly which player to go to build a move. And we see so many moves build through him. So I think Luke Shaw has to be in with a shout. And I'm going to say Marcus Rashford because he struggled a little bit in recent weeks. I maybe thought that he needed a little bit of a break in this one. I know that me and Henry were chatting about this, I think, on my radio show the other day. And he was phenomenal on the left-hand side, and he needs to play on that left-hand side more often. I don't want to see him shifted around the front three to accommodate for certain players. I hate seeing him on the right-hand side, especially when it's to accommodate for Anthony Martial, who I don't think has done anything really worthy to start too many games. Obviously scored 2 against Southampton and 2 bloody good goals as well. But Marcus Rashford off the left-hand side, especially when Luke Shaw's in the form he's in, it's too deadly not to play. So I'm going to give it Rashford and Luke Shaw, I think.
So I just want to mention something about Rashford. He had, and I mentioned this to you before, James, about, we had this sort of back and forth about him. He had a statistically better game in this one than his previous 2. That shows how much of a difference either being on the left makes, or, I was glad he took him off after half an hour because I'm thinking, just please take him off. I know he does need a break. He's played every game. He's been a bit here and there, in terms of running stats haven't been right up there where they usually were, interceptions and blocks and whatever. but he was absolutely fantastic in the Southampton game. And I think, yeah, it's partly due to that left-hand side, but I think maybe someone even gave him a kick up the arse and said, listen, mate, you've got to do it now. So he did it in the first half, and he will start against Everton. He will. So he cemented his place in for that game. But, you know, I thought he was fantastic, and he's now put in the stats for this game. I just want to see it against Everton. The same performance, no slacking. You know, it needs to be as good, obviously, in terms of performance, maybe not the result against Everton, but yeah, it needs to be the same level of performance, or else we'll be talking about this side again in a negative way, and I don't want to do that.
Just before James comes in here, Jonathan just made a comment then saying, interesting that Rashford's assist came from the right-hand side. And that can be the only reason why I can think that he is played on the right, because we have seen it happen a few times this season. I think it was Rashford who set up Pogba's winner against Burnley. Yeah. And we've seen it happen quite a lot. And to be fair, if that's the reason that he's being put on the right, then at least I can see a reason for it. But if we're going to play someone on the right to play crosses in, there are better players out there than Marcus Rashford at that. And don't get me wrong, Rashford is brilliant, but we could find someone else for that right-hand side. And I think that's maybe what we're lacking. A right-sided, right-footed player who can play a class ball in. And I think that's maybe what we're going to go out and strengthen in the summer.
Yeah, I'd hope so. But yeah, I'll build on what Henry said. I don't think Rashford or Luke Shaw are my man of the match, but me and Henry have had a discussion about Rashford, a bit of a back and forth. I was defending him to the hills, but, you know, in hindsight, I can see, looking at his performance against Southampton, his performances before that weren't up to scratch at all. No. And I think that is largely down to the fact that he wasn't being played on the left for most of it. I think you see the difference between Luke Shaw and Martial on the left and Luke Shaw and Rashford on the left is astronomical. I think Luke Shaw and Martial have no idea who they even are. I'm convinced they've never spoken to each other once. Luke Shaw will make a run in behind. Martial will not look at the run. Luke Shaw will stop, and then Martial will pass it 2 seconds later, and then wonder why the ball's gone out for a goal kick. Whereas Rashford and Luke Shaw, it's like prime Barcelona tiki-taka down that left-hand side at times. But I'm going to go with that's what I'll say about Rashford. I'm very happy that he's picked up his performances, but I think my man of the match is Wan-Bissaka. It would have been Luke Shaw if he'd have stayed on for the full game. I just think it'd be harsh to give someone man of the match for 45 minutes. But Wan-Bissaka, he's been so heavily criticised about his attacking output, and to get a goal and an assist is from right back is everything you could ask for, isn't it? He was a constant threat down that right, linked up quite well with Mason Greenwood, which we've not seen very much. You know, and his defending as well. We saw that last ditch challenge on Danny Ings that saved us a goal. You know, so suddenly we're not equaling a record if that goes in. So I think he played such a huge part in this in the win, and I think I'll give it to him just because of how unfairly criticised he's been for going forward. Because I think that side of his game has improved massively this season, even if his defensive side has maybe slacked off a little bit, but not much at all. But yeah, I'll go with Wan-Bissaka.
He tried his best to miss that goal. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, he was clearing it.
Yeah, he was like, it was. I'll just hit it wherever it goes, and if it goes to the net, fine. He hit the post from about 2 yards out, and I was like, oh no.
He's honestly, he's one of my favourite players at the minute. Like, he is the weirdest football player I've ever seen. I love eccentric football players, and whether it's their personality or the playing style or just their technique. And Wan-Bissaka's technique is the weirdest thing I have ever seen. Like, I've never played the game to any standard, so I'd be no better. But everything he does looks amateur, but is effective. So Wan-Bissaka, when he goes to take a cross, it looks like a 6-year-old that you've just rolled the ball to and said, kick it back to me. And it's like that technique, but it always finds a man. Like, it's extraordinary. And so I'm not like taking anything away from him here because it works, but even his tackling, sometimes I'm like, why is he going in for a slide? Oh, he's got the ball. And it's just really strange.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I was saying to Henry as well, I'm convinced that goal, he thought he was clearing it, and he thought he'd scored an own goal up until Cavani came and hugged him. He didn't have a clue what was going on. But yeah, like he constantly looks like he's going to fall over, and that's what I love about him. I don't know how he stays on his feet for so long, because he's just such an awkward player. But I'll open the floor if anyone else has got anything to add about the game before we move on.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of, I've seen people putting their starting 11s up and who they want to start. I think Martial will start at the weekend. I do, and it's not because of it's not because of form or whatever. I think Cavani started the last couple of games, and I think that Martial, he scored 2, and I think that with him, he's such a form player that if you drop him again, he'll have a stinker the next game. So I think it's one of those things where, I mean, even when I described his face when he missed one of those chances later in the game, it was like he smelt a bad egg. It was like someone had just let one go in the room. He was like, oh,
it's like that Ice Cube meme where he's like,
yeah,
it's like that's constantly Martial.
Yeah, it's but he is the most miserable. But I'm sure he's happy inside when he scores, but he still looks miserable when he scores. So, but I think in terms of mentality, he's got to start at the weekend, and I think that he will. I think he will, because Cavani's going to be more aerially a threat, but against Yerry Mina, that's going to be a bit rough. So I think you've got to go with tiki-taka and quick feet.
Well, I'll ask you the same thing then, Gaz. Well, not that I asked Henry, but who do you think we play up front now? Martial to keep him in form, or do you think we stick with Cavani because he has been better this season? And Everton now, after that win, it's so important that we build on it and keep winning. Do you think we stick with tried and trusted in Cavani?
Look, I think Anthony Martial is going to have a really good career, and I think he's going to go to maybe the French league or something like that, and he's going to absolutely tear it up. Like, this guy is going to get incredible numbers, I do think, throughout his career. I don't think they're going to be at Manchester United, though, and I don't think they're going to be under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United, because I feel like Anthony Martial, for all his qualities, his general off the ball play in particular goes against everything that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to bring to Manchester United. The one thing he wants is for a player to work harder than his opposite number, and we just don't see that from Anthony Martial. He's just not that type of player, and Cavani is the polar opposite to that, so it's so obvious the difference in movement up front. So for that reason, Cavani, for me, if he's fit, plays and starts every single game above Anthony Martial. I'm not necessarily above Anthony Martial, but I think if Cavani has to start every game, then where are you going to put Martial? You can't put him on the left, because that's Rashford's position for me, and he needs to consistently be played there. Martial, what can he do on the right-hand side, really? So I'm sort of thinking there's not really many places in this team left for him, and I wouldn't play him personally. It's got to be Cavani whenever he's fit every single time.
Well, staying with Martial then, just quickly, do you think, it's obvious that his movement isn't up to scratch, especially when you compare him to Cavani, but do you think that's down to sort of a lack of effort, because he does look a bit lackluster all over the pitch, or do you think he just genuinely lacks the intelligence to know where to run and when to run?
I don't think he lacks the intelligence. But then at the same time, I don't want to say it's effort too much, because look, what would Berbatov have done in this team? Dimitar Berbatov, for me, one of the silkiest and greatest strikers I've watched at United. He would not fit into this team. It's that simple. He wouldn't fit into this team. So it's the same sort of situation where it's just his style of play just doesn't work in this team.
Yeah, fair enough. Anything else before we move on?
No?
Good. Well, the last thing we wanted to cover then, we're going to be sort of careful with this issue, because obviously it wouldn't be right to speak for people, but it's coming out recently that your co-host of Talking Balls, guys, Kyle, he's had sort of a hit piece on himself and other people who have been featuring on Sky Sports News about the fact that, they don't deserve to be there, and they're just sort of ticking boxes. I just wanted to get your sort of opinions on it, because obviously he is a close friend of yours, so how do you feel about the stuff that's going on at the minute?
Well, I'll be honest. When I read the piece that was in the Sun, it was the tone of it which really got to me. And the ticking box phrase, I think, is something which is thrown around so much now, and must be a horrible feeling when you've got a job and then you're just being told, or there's people around you telling you that you're just there to fill a diversity quota, especially when it's just plainly not true about a lot of these people that they're talking about. I mean, I don't know Flex too well, the guy who the article actually mentioned, but I do know Kyle really well. And I know that Kyle's one of the best and most hardworking and most positive and the greatest attitude. One of the best presenters I've worked with in that sense. And that's why he's got to the position he's in, because of bloody hard work. And that's why he's in the position he's in. And that's why he's on Sky Sports News. And also, he's a passionate football fan as well. I think that's what these media companies are doing now, that they're seeing that actually fans' voices are important. And also, other fans want to hear from other fans. It's not a case of getting a fan on and then automatically this fan speaks for all of that fan base. It's not that. That's not the case. They're just getting him on for his opinion. If you disagree with it, you can say that. But I think I found it really weird as well, because Sky Sports have been doing this for a while. They've been getting fans on to speak to them in the last few years, and I've done it myself. You know, I've appeared a couple of times just talking on Sky Sports News, giving my opinion. And there's never been any problem with it. And I think there's now some very strange problem when a certain type of person comes on Sky Sports News, and I have this horrible feeling that it's more to do with what they look like, which is depressing. It's depressing that I feel like there's people watching Sky Sports News and they have a problem with it based on the way that someone looks, because they don't look like them, and they're thinking, well, why do I want to wear what this, you know, what this young black lad thinks who dresses in Adidas and wears tracky bottoms and wears cap? Why do I care what he thinks? Why does that matter? Like, what does it matter what a football fan's wearing or what they look like to add any weight or take any weight away from their opinion? Like I say, I just find it weird, because Sky Sports have been doing this with fans for ages, and all of a sudden people have a problem with it, and that's what's making me think, I wonder why.
I find it funny that people like this will trust Paul Merson's opinion over someone like Kyle. You know, Paul Merson that has recently basically done a verbal hit piece on Liverpool's new signing Kabak, saying, you know, he's a panic buy, he's not up to this standard, so on and so on, as if he's not one of the best young defenders in the world. I just find it mind-boggling.
But yeah, this is the thing, what you've just said then. People have this belief about fans who end up on TV or whatever. So people say this about Kyle. People have definitely said it about me in the past. People have this belief that we have our opinions just to get attention. Like, we're making up these opinions because we want people to pay attention to us, and we want to be, you know, famous one day. And that's absolutely not the case. It's more the case for the other people, actually. And a lot of the old pundits and a lot of the old boys are doing it now and coming out and saying these extraordinary things because they know it's going to get clicks. And I totally understand bringing in, you know, talking to professionals of the game, people who have actually played the game, as well as fans. Like, we want to hear from both sides. People want both opinions, and that's the way that I see it personally. And I think that the people that Sky Sports News get on, from what I know, the people that I know are really hardworking, intelligent, opinionated, but passionate people that love their football club, and people that have been going to watch their football club since they were a kid. This belief that a load of, you know, fan channels, I've had it labelled at me before. I've had people come up to me and say, you know, you're only a United fan because you're on a fan. You're only a United fan to make money off a United fan channel. And it's like, I've been going United since I was like 4 years old. I've been a United fan all my life. The exact same is said for Kyle. He's a lad from Fallowfield who's been going to City all his life. He's in the position because he deserves to be, and that's it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'll come to you, Henry. We spoke to Jamie from the United Stand the other day about this convergence between mainstream media and fan channels and how it is working well and will probably continue to work well. Now, literally days later, we see this piece on The Sun. Do you think these sort of articles, especially as student journalists like we are, do you think this shows that, you know, the media is still in such a bad state when it comes towards just letting new things in that they're not used to? Like, you know, people, well, you know, minorities entering the mainstream media, and, you know, the fan channels coming onto the mainstream media, because it's not things that people who write for The Sun are used to by the looks of it. So do you think that just is state of affairs?
Yeah, it's frustrating, and this is why I've been really hesitant about wanting to go into journalism stuff, because we're painted in the same light as these guys, the guys that are constantly critical and nothing better to do with their lives. They're just miserable people, to be honest, and they've got nothing better to do than put others down. So I think that the fan and ex-pro cohesion they've created is brilliant, because you can get two different sides of things, and we've seen with TalkSport, or Talk Shit as a lot of people call them, because they do stuff for clicks. They do stuff to say things that are just like last week they were saying, "Oh, Lampard's better than Ollie as a manager," and you're just thinking genuinely don't believe that. It's just you're just saying it to get people to look at your show. So yeah, it's becoming a problem, and I think that, but we're accepting of it. We're accepting of fans being on, because we are fans. We're accepting of fans being on Sky Sports and whatever. It's these old-fashioned people that don't like it because, they've changed from Phil Thompson to Carl Walker and Flex. The reality is, Carl and Flex have better opinions than Thompson and Laetitia did. They were boring to watch. I'm sorry, they were just boring to watch. It was just, it's just sat there that you're thinking, why the fuck would I want to listen to these lot? Because they don't know half the, they're ex-pros, but they're from the 70s and 80s. The game is changing. It's evolved completely differently. And Sky is seeing the right thing. And we've got to evolve with the media. We've got to evolve with football itself. And they're making the right call, because some of the stuff that I see, the new shows, even on YouTube and whatever, it's brilliant to see. It's good to see fans getting more involved. Football is nothing without fans. Let me make that very clear. We've seen it, they're not in stadiums now, but they're still a huge part on social media, to the clubs. They mean the world to the clubs. So football is nothing without fans. I think that including fans even more is a massive thing to do, and it's brilliant to see. I like seeing these shows, but there'll always be someone to knock everyone else down when you're at the top. So I think what this article is just, I basically think it just seems racist almost to me, looking at stereotypical stuff. It's just it's awful.
Also, like we've had our say on the article and the response to it, but I think it's important for anyone watching this to actually go and listen to the people who have been directly affected by this article as well, because as much as we can say that we understand, the reason that people are offended by this article, it's important to actually go out and listen to those people, to listen to what Kyle's had to say about it, listen to what Flex has had to say about it, and really try and learn things from that, so we don't end up falling into that trap ourselves. And you guys as going into journalism as well, like, don't let that put you off. You should absolutely want to get into it twice as hard now, so you can almost be that change and that influence from the inside. But yeah, definitely the most important thing when something like this happens is to listen to the people who have been directly affected by it, and try and, I mean, we're never going to have a full understanding of we understand that these people are in the wrong and these people are in the right, but we're never going to fully understand where they're coming from, because they have totally different experiences to us. So let's listen to them. Let's listen to what the people affected think we should do about it, and let's work together for change, really.
Yeah, I'm seeing a few in the comments. Obviously, we didn't explain it. We probably should have done, but just wondering what's going on. If you want sort of full context to it, do be sure to check out Carl Walker on Twitter, because he's handled the situation really well. He's explained everything that's happened in detail, and the reaction underneath his tweets and around his tweets is really, really positive. And it's great to see that the majority of people on the internet, despite all the bad things we hear, the majority of people are good people, and they're helping Carl in every way they can. So, and with Flex as well, be sure to go and check out their Twitters to see exactly what's going on. But I'll come back to that point, Gaz. Do you think the reaction around the tweet, because I've looked at quite a lot of the replies and the quote tweets, etc. Do you think that's something positive to take forward? The fact that a lot of people are heavily against this.
I mean, yeah, of course it's positive that more and more people are understanding where it's coming from and where the offence has come from, and that can only be a good thing. But it's one thing going on Twitter and writing a message of support, and then it's another thing, I suppose, actually living your life that way. And there's this whole virtue signaling thing that people bring up, and at times I worry, myself, and putting all these things on Twitter and calling stuff out. But if you're not bringing that into day-to-day life, then what good are you really doing? But I know it's obviously a positive thing, mate. And all these people, everyone commenting on Kyle's post is incredible, has his back, and it must have been great for him to get that as well. But it only takes one article from someone in a position of real power, and the people in the positions of real power, they're not the people who are going to be replying to him and giving support. So it's one of them where, yeah, it's heartening, it's nice to see, but it must just get real frustrating. It must just get real frustrating for him and other people who get this shit week in, week out, and get told that they're ticking a box, because it's mad. It's mad unless you work with them, unless you work with people who have had that labelled at them, ticking a box. You don't understand, because Kyle, as I say, I can only speak about him personally because I don't know Flex too well, but Kyle is one of the best presenters I've ever worked with, incredibly hardworking, and that's why he's in the position he's in. But yeah, that's it.
Definitely. Henry, you got anything to add before we wrap up?
I was going to say, it's sad to see this happening now. We're in 2021. We thought we'd left all this behind a couple of years ago. It's sad to see it happening now. It really is. It's a shame for football, and it just goes to show that. I'm not going to say that actually, because that sounds really harsh. I was going to mention something about these people in general, until these people have fucked off out of the media, it's not going to change. No, that's the nicest way to put it. Until they're gone, and until they've been, like, the guy who wrote the article, I can't remember his name again.
I don't even know who it is.
He should be fired on the spot, but they won't, because it gets clicks and whatever. That's the Sun for you. But they should just get rid of him, because that's targeting someone for the way they dress. Who gives a shit how anyone dresses? Who gives a shit who they are?
Mate, they didn't give a shit how we were dressed when it was people who looked like me appearing on Sky Sports News. That's all I'm saying. They were never questioning the way I was dressing and the way I looked, and it's all of a sudden. All of a sudden they've got a problem now.
Yeah, exactly, and it is, it's institutional racism. I mentioned it before, and I'm not going to go in depth into it again, because I've said it before, and it will just be that constantly. But they are not on there because of that. They're on there because they're opinions, because they're well thought of people. Why Flex is really big in terms of United fan base, as is Kyle in terms of their opinions are valued on Radio Manchester. Kyle winds me up a little bit even when I come on.
I was going to say, having said all this, Kyle does talk some shit about Manchester United, so I just want to make that very, very clear.
He does, but that's what makes him so good at his job.
Exactly.
Because he's able to get a response out of everyone and able to do his job to the full potential. Whereas this 50, 60, whatever he is, old dickhead, doesn't know what he's talking about, hasn't done any research. He's seen him once on television and gone, don't like that. So, yeah, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of these old bastards making us, us young journalists, we're put in the same bracket as these lot. Nothing. Oh, Bill Leckie, yeah, Bill Leckie, go fuck yourself. Sorry. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, I'll just echo everything you're saying, really. There'd be no point in repeating it, but just a final closing statement of don't, under any circumstances, ever buy the Sun. Thank you. Yeah. That's where we'll end it. Gaz, massive thank you for coming on. It's been brilliant to talk to you.
Anytime, guys. Anytime. I love it.
Check Gaz out on Twitter at Radio Gaz, and check out Talking Balls as well. You might even see me and Henry, or hear me and Henry on there a few times. So, yeah, check that out. But Henry, again, massive thanks for joining me. Thank you to everyone who watched and contributed in whichever way you did. But until next time, we'll see you later.
Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.